Hey, we're here with Coach Woods from the University of Denver. Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Christian. How are you?
I can't complain. I can't complain. So when did you realize coaching was something you wanted to do for the rest of your life?
I think if you made me trace it all the way back, I'd probably say my freshman year in high school. Initially, I'd always wanted to be a lawyer, right? If they say, oh, childhood dream lawyer. Once I started playing basketball, just fell in love with the game and had some coaches that were phenomenal. And I was thinking, okay, maybe if I could just basketball can be my court, right? And kind of shifted to I want to be a teacher. But I would probably say my freshman year when I started to take basketball seriously in high school and had opportunity to be surrounded by some great coaches. And I always thought if I could have the same type of impact on players as they had on me, then I'd have a successful career.
Okay. Who is Marion Washington to you? And how important is that person you as an example in the coaching world?
Yeah, growing up in Topeka, Kansas, Coach Washington spent 31 years at the University of Kansas, so it's about 25 minutes away. I've always been a realistic person. I knew I was never good enough to play at Kansas, but at the time it was actually seventh grade when we started going, whether middle school trips to University of Kansas. And so you have the opportunity to kind of see her on the sidelines. I never didn't think that would be possible for me. It was just a matter of when and where I would get my opportunity. It was always special to be able to go to the Kansas for games. Just being from Topeka, it was always a big road trip, field day that we had to make this whole process. And so I'd always remember just being enamored that there was a Black lady on the sidelines. And in my hometown, it was a Division II Washburn University who had a really phenomenal team, coached very well. But every time we had a chance to go to games at Kansas, it just meant something different. I felt like I could kind of see myself on the sidelines when I was watching them play.
Awesome. So like you mentioned before, you're from Topeka, Kansas.
Yes, proudly.
Of course, as it should be. So a Kansas basketball player. If you were to use one word to describe a basketball player from Kansas, what would it be and why?
Like from the state of Kansas?
From the state of Kansas. One word, describe it. Kansas basketball player. What would it be?
One word, gritty. I don't think, when you think about some of the greats that have come from the state of Kansas, just super gritty, especially on the women's side. Lynette Woodard, I don't have enough time to talk about her, Kansas legend. First female Harlem Globetrotter for people that are keeping tabs of like little history lesson. Jackie Stiles, who was all-time leading scorer. I think they just very gritty type of game. I know you asked for one word, but I feel like I have to describe it. And then just, hard nose. I think typically Kansas is one of those, are you Midwest, are you not? So you kind of play with this chip on your shoulder a little bit, and always feel like you have something to prove. And I feel like growing up, whether it's some of the grades, again, Jackie, Lynette, even Lori Kane, shooter at K-State, Kendra Wecker, they did a great job for a while keeping Kansas kids at home, but very gritty and hard nosed.
What is three strikes or triple threat?
Yeah. Three strikes.
I'm ready.
I see you in digital research. I am one that I am super fortunate to be in a position here at the University of Denver where they have hired me to show up as my full self. And what that means for me is I have a chance to not feel like I have to hide any of my identities. I'm someone who identifies as a female who happens to be gay. And I own all three of those identities. All three are important to me. I don't shy away from any of them. And it's nice being at a place that accepts all of those. We are doing a Pride game this year in February, and we're also doing a Unity game as well. So it's just nice to be in a place that supports that and gives us the resources to also educate our fans too. I think what I'm excited about is this year, it'll be the first annual that we're having a chance to kind of collaborate with places across campus that we can let students, athletes know the resources that are on campus, whether you identify LGBTQ or if you are a person of color, here's the resources. So to be able to collaborate in those games, I'm really excited about. But I used to consider myself three strikes because there's oftentimes when you're dealing with people, sexism, racism, homophobia, I check all those boxes. And I had a really good friend who was like, well, we prefer triple threat because, all those things are a threat to people, but it's also makes you more threatening the more you can educate yourself and show up as your full self in some of those spaces. So I'm fortunate to be able to embrace all those identities and also share with other people.
Mhm, mhm. If you were to use one word to describe your coaching style, what would it be and why?
Oh gosh. You know what the crazy part is, I knew this question was coming, right? Like I knew it was coming. And I always have a hard time, but I would say, can you be passionate and calm at the same time? Because that's how I am. I'm super passionate, but I also feel like I have a calming to me, but passion at the end of the day. I am one of those that I don't believe in anything. Anything is worth doing if you don't do it with passion. And for me, that's basketball. It's got me through a lot. It's definitely that kind of sanctuary for me when I'm on the court. So I'm a very passionate leader, but I'm also a very understanding leader too. I run a type of program where our players have an opportunity to have a voice. I take their input not on everything, but if it's something that is minor to me but important to them, I might just, okay, we all decide. So passionate, and but I also feel like it's very important to be collaborative at times.
I haven't heard that one yet. I would say quiet storm. That's what it is, a quiet storm.
Quiet storm.
Quiet storm. That's what you are.
Yeah, I'm just like, we played our quadruple overtime game against Butler, and I could see kind of the tense on our players' faces. And every time it was like one player subbed out, and she was like, I was waiting for you to yell at me. And I'm like, well, you already knew what you did wrong. So why am I going to compound the problem? And so, you got to, okay, be ready the next time. And that's really how I am. Rarely do you see me. I'm not a huge yeller. I'll definitely get some zingers in there. I think I'm sarcastic for sure. The rest probably don't like that too much. But yeah, I'm pretty calm, but I like the quiet storm. I'm gonna have to start. I'm gonna have to steal that.
Go with it, coach. Go with it.
Yes.
You played at Barton, then you went to Western Illinois, correct?
Yes.
So you worked your way up to an elite level. How important? Because the JUCO, in the Midwest is, for what I know, is pretty good. How important was that time for you? Working your way up, and in regards to JUCO players, would you even consider a JUCO player, knowing the journey and the path that you did and what it did for you in your career? So just tell me a bit about that time and your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. Growing up in Kansas, the Jayhawk Conference, there's about 18 junior colleges, and I think we always felt fortunate because it was never a stigma. It was always, for whatever reason, maybe you had small towns that just AU wasn't what it was then what it is now. So you just didn't, for me, I was a huge softball player. I played softball in the summers. I didn't play on these circuits that I spend my summers doing now. And having the opportunity to go to Barton County, it was just phenomenal. And I say all the time, I would have stayed there 4 years if it was possible. I think it gave me a great time to just kind of make that transition from high school to college. I played for a great coach who is actually now, they were ranked #1 in D2. I think they've dropped to maybe 5 or so, Coach Hobson at Fort Hayes. And ironically, him and I were just texting a couple of weeks ago, and he was just saying basically how much he enjoyed coaching a player like me. I think JUCO gave me a chance to kind of find myself, to grow my game. I remember my freshman year, my roommate we played pickup. Back then you played pickup all the time. You're trying to size each other up. And we went and played pickup. And here I am thinking I'm a point guard, and we're both about 5'4". And we started playing, and she busts me up. I mean, it's like, but she could handle the ball, she could pass. And I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to play over her. That's just, again, I've always been very realistic. And so I worked up my shot. I'm like, she can't shoot and she can't defend. Let me do these two things. And, our freshman year, we in the locker room, we lost last game of the year, and coach is like, hey, congratulations, you have the worst record school history at the time. And that was literally all he said. We were 15-16. It was the worst record. The next year, again, with me shifting to the 2, we had our starting point guard back, we went 29-2. I think it was just so much fun to play with that team. We had so much pride in what we were doing. I think to get to the level, I was a Pell Grant, and so I did my work study for the basketball office. And so at the time I had to kind of start coordinating the recruiting already, putting together things on the calendar or writing down addresses. And I realized, oh, there's more than one Division I. You're growing up in Kansas, it was Kansas or nothing, right? Kansas or nothing, Kansas or nothing, or Division IIs. And so that's when I realized and started to understand the different levels of Division I. So by my work study, I would just kind of send out, hi, this is my name, here's our schedule, and I would always add that in there. And so when I had the chance to play at Western Illinois, the head coach at the time was from Kansas, is actually back now coaching at a Juco in Kansas. But I love both of those opportunities. I wouldn't trade either one of them. And people gave me a hard time at Barton. It's in Great Bend, Kansas, small town. Macomb, Illinois is very similar. And the two official visits I took was to Western Illinois, University of Houston. And everyone just assumed I was going to Houston. But it's so much about, I learned then, go where you're wanted, right? Go where you're wanted and needed, not where you're just another player. And that's how I felt at Western. And then to take it a step further, once I graduated to where I had a chance to start my career there as well. My first 3 years coaching was there. So long-winded answer to a simple question, but in terms of recruiting JUCO players, absolutely. I think it's a different type of grind, especially now, all the different factors, whether it's academics, the pandemic, there's so many different injuries, there's so many different reasons why people are there. And I think I was fortunate people didn't judge me because I was too short or I was too this or too that. And pretty much if you can help us play and you can be successful here academically and athletically, you feel like working, I'll definitely willing to look at anyone.
Is Independence in that conference too?
Yes. So there's Jayhawk East and West, but Independence is, yes.
Okay. See, I'll be knowing, Coach.
Right? Look at you.
So you mentioned it before, your first assistant coaching job, Western Illinois. Tell us about that time and what you learned from that experience.
Gosh, well, first of all, I'd like to say my senior year in college was my first year coaching because I was the only senior. And to have 7 freshmen that year, it was challenging. They worked hard, they were phenomenal, but I was like, oh gosh, is this what it's going to feel like? And so I was supposed to be a graduate assistant and we had a coach take a job at awkward times. So to be able to coach there, that was probably the hardest time because I was just teammates with everybody. So now I went from, hi Doshia, here D, whatever they called me. And now it's Coach Woods, and trying to have that kind of boundary early. I was fortunate to have to learn that early on. But I really enjoyed coaching and started my career there. I think Macomb is a town that's set up for the athletes and for the students. And so it's like you have this fun as a athlete and as a student. And then when you start to become a young professional, I'm like, wait, I can't do the same things because it's not really for me. So it was a great 3 years of just learning. It gave me a chance that, back then we only had 2 assistants. So I had to do everything. And there was not a lot, there wasn't a blueprint. Coach was like, you're in charge of scheduling. Well, she never told me that we couldn't have more than 2 non-Division I. So I scheduled 3, got in trouble for that. It wasn't like there's whole blueprint. Okay, you're in charge of camps. So you got overnight camp and these elite camps and figure it out. But it really became the foundation of my coaching career just because when you're coaching at a smaller level with limited resources, you're used to doing a lot of different things. I've had a chance to coach at bigger places with a little bit more resources, and I always go back to my time, and I can always go back to a story when I was at Western where I had to start out that way. So that was a fun 3 years, and then easier just playing for the person I was working for, that I didn't have to learn the basketball part, and it really gave me a chance to hone in on the office side of things.
You then went on to be an assistant at New Mexico State, correct?
Yes, that was a quick stint. That was a quick year. That was just one where I knew I could have stayed at Western forever, but I wanted to kind of branch out. I played for coach and worked for, and about 5 years combined. And so that was a quick stint. And you talk about in terms of moving up through your career, from my stint at New Mexico State to going to Oregon State for 3 years. There was a spring tournament in Phoenix and I had to go there, work, recruiting. And long story short, the head coach at Oregon State was at the same tournament. We knew of each other, but we didn't know each other. She had a position open. So she calls me in May and she literally tells me almost everything I did that weekend, from what I ate, who I talked to in the hospitality room, kind of which court, which kid I was watching. And I was just fascinated that A, she was paying that much attention, but it was also another lesson that I had a chance to learn early in my career that somebody's always watching. Like as soon as you leave your house, you're on an interview. People are watching you, taking notes. And a lot of times people think, hey, I'm going to go to the Final Four and try to impress this person. No, July recruiting, because people can see you work. Are you on your phone? Are you talking? What are you talking about? Is it relevant? And I learned that early on, that literally that weekend, how I worked is what got me the job at Oregon State, is what she told me.
Mhm. And you were the RC at Oregon State, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
at 26. Yes.
Awesome, awesome. So you mentioned July. It's July. You walk into the gym, you know, Chicago, wherever you want to think about. So you see all these kids playing. You're going from game to game and court to court, whatever. What catches your eye? What type of player? What are they doing? What's the name what gets their name in the book?
Well, that's good. First of all, the motor. I think sometimes obviously the skill, but if the motor, because this is my 21st year of doing this, and I think of coaching at this level. I've only coached at Division I level. Again, I've had a lot of hard work, a lot of luck, a lot of breaks. But I think the motor part is becoming hard to teach, because you think about it, you see a kid, man, she keeps playing hard, she's playing hard. And then I'll wait for, okay, how does her free throw look? Because if it looks decent, then I feel like I can work with everything else. So the motor is pretty much what will catch my attention. When I say motor, the shot goes up, are you at least pursuing the rebound? You don't have to get it. Are you at least pursuing? Even if it's a combo guard, just in terms of their vision. I have a category, should have been an assist, right? And most of the time that's used for high school players, because you get who you get in your district, right? But at AAU, you have a little bit more kind of an all-star team, but it should have been an assist. Was it the right play? Was it the right move? But I would say the motor is probably top of my list. And then how does a free throw look? Because I feel like if your free throw looks decent, I can work with everything else. We play a fast style. We want to play fast. I'm not quite there yet. But we play a 5-out motion. And so to be able to have a good motor to attack at least 1 or 2 dribbles, but the motor usually catches my eye first.
Mm-hmm. So, you went into Missouri. You were there for a bit, very good Power 5 school. You had 3 all-conference players while you were there. Looking back, what was the most valuable thing you learned during that tenure?
Good. Having a chance to work for Coach Stein, I think that's where I started to kind of learn to just, simple is better sometimes, right? We had basically a 4-out motion offense that just everything was simple. It didn't necessarily have a ton of sideline plays. She ran a very simple system there. And I would say also, coming from Oregon State to University of Missouri, starting to learn the different types of players. Back then it was a Pac-10. Missouri at the time was in the Big 12, learning the different types of players, starting my career at a low major, going to the Power 5s. And that's when I started to kind of understand, okay, there's, as you mentioned earlier, you want to go in the gym, there's just some kids you won't be able to touch, right? There's some kids that you'll be able to touch just because I have Missouri now across my chest instead of Western Illinois. That's just the reality of it. But I think in terms of how Coach Stein ran her program, simple. It was super simple. And when it was time to work, we worked. And when it was time to basically, recruit, we had a chance to kind of be in each category, but it was a super simple, and it gave me a chance to just kind of breathe and be exposed to something different, especially in terms of the X's and O's.
Mm-hmm. So you spent 10 years at Tulane.
10 years, yes.
Tell me about your time there. Longevity and experience is key, being comfortable is key. And you clearly were there. So tell me, what was it about that area in that school that really gravitated, to you?
Have you been to New Orleans?
Huh?
Have you been to New Orleans?
No, unfortunately, I have not. I have friends that always try to get me to go down there, but I'm more of an Atlanta type of person. And,
oh God, well, that's almost like an insult. Atlanta's cool too. What I really loved, and we can get to the city part later, but Tulane was the first school that I worked at that I felt like you could truly say the academic piece, the athletic piece. Tulane's top 100 academically. Athletically, we competed in Conference USA, American Conference, a pretty good conference. And then the part that Lisa taught me, Lisa Stockton, the head coach there, is the social part. I was really just fascinated working for her for 10 years. And people think, oh, you're in New Orleans, you have a ton of roles, or all of these team roles. And obviously Mardi Gras, some of these staples that you think of when you think of New Orleans. And we didn't have team roles like that. We weren't doing room checks. I did room checks in Corvallis, Oregon, right? I did room checks in the dorms in Corvallis, Oregon. I never did a room check in New Orleans. And I learned then that recruiting was really important. We took our time in recruiting. You try to knock it out early in terms of asking some of the hard questions, learning about people. In my time there, in my 10 years there, I know things are very different now, but we had one transfer in 10 years, literally one transfer in 10 years who, we still follow each other on Instagram, and we didn't leave. She didn't leave on bad terms, just wanted something different. And I think a lot of that is to credit to Lisa and just how she runs her program. I think the other thing, just in terms of basketball, that I loved about her is when I first got there, we were playing the triangle. We played the triangle, then it went to a 4-out dribble drive, then it went to a horn series. Like, she wasn't ever afraid to adjust. It wasn't one of those programs where, I'm going to play University X, and they're going to play like this all the time, and just no matter what players they have. She really taught me that this is how I want to play. Oh, but this is what your skill set came back like, and this is what we're going to adjust. We're going to adjust. I had a couple bigs the first couple of years, and they graduated and became more guard heavy, a little bit more athletic. And I was always just, we'd have our little staff retreat and kind of talk about, this is what we want to try to do. And then after preseason, okay, we're going to have to scrap that. And she was never afraid to do that. A lot of how she ran her program, it's how, I wouldn't say it's how I'm trying to do here, but I definitely have picked a lot from her. To be at some place for 28 years, you have to be doing a lot of things right. Tulane and DU are very similar just in terms of our academic program, our profile. Obviously, we want to be successful athletically on the court, and then the social piece. We didn't say encourage our players, obviously, if we got games and things like that, but misconception about Mardi Gras, the parade starts, a mile from Tulane's campus. Okay, ride your bike down there, go see the start of the parade. You don't go down to Bourbon Street. Let's be smart about it, right? But to really encourage them to get out, go to a Saints game, go to Pelican games here, go to Nuggets game, go to Broncos game. You have things to do when you have a day off. And I think that is such a missing piece that coaches are afraid to talk about. If you say you can't, and you have all these rules, what's going to happen? They're going to break these rules. So now it's like we talk about being responsible. And I learned a lot of that from her.
You then moved on to become the head coach at Denver. Why was this place an ideal place for you? Why did it make sense?
Spending 10 years at Tulane, I had started to kind of just like the setup, honestly, the academic piece that you were getting an athlete or a player that was a little bit more focused academically, that it meant something, right? The degree, obviously want to be at a place that you can compete for championships, both, obviously in conference play and just any other tournaments you may play. And then the social piece. So those three kind of boxes checked out. But I think here at Denver, having those three things already, I knew that coming in. What I didn't know is just how supportive the administration would be. I felt, as we talked about earlier, whether it's 3 strikes or triple threat, to be able to interview as my full self. And not that it's funny, not that any of that ever came up, but to be able to, from day one that I've been here, just kind of show up and feel like who I am is enough. Who I am is what they wanted for the job. It wasn't like, we hope you can do X, Y, Z. It's like, this is what we're looking for. You are the best fit. And I've been told that, and I've been shown that from day one. I think Denver, we talk about, obviously professionally, I feel like it's a great move and it's a great fit for what they're looking for. They're looking for someone to come in and change the culture. That's kind of how I've built my careers, culture and relationships. Obviously, most of that time at Tulane. And then, once all of that kind of subsides, is I wanted, in terms of my personal life, I wanted a place that we didn't have to go be in a closet, right? We'd spent, 10 years in New Orleans just living, right? You got a function, bring your +1. She was always my +1. So it was important that when it was time to leave there, that we could still be who we are. And so this place literally checked all the boxes. Again, I've started my career, whether it's as a player, as a coach, being very realistic. I always wanted an opportunity that I could have that I could be at a low major, honestly, or mid major, have a chance to make some mistakes and it'd be okay, right? I never was one like, I need to have a Power 5 job, a big job. I wanted to be at a place that wanted me for me and wanted to have patience to help me build the culture and build a program how I want. And I have all of that here at DU.
Mhm. You know, you are a member of the WBCA. You have also participated in a lot of nice roundtables, spoke at a lot of nice events, panels at the national convention. What was a favorite of yours that really gravitated towards you? And can you discuss the impact of the WBCA and what they provide and how important that is to you and other young coaches?
Are you on fire with these questions? Yes, and your research. I'm impressed by your research. I
I'm
really
here,
am.
coach. I'm here. I'm here.
Yes, yes. I don't want to say funny, but it's so crazy now because I think it was 2017, Final Four in Dallas. I did a roundtable on once you get them, how do you keep them? And this was, again, my time at Tulane. We didn't have a lot of transfers. And I had did this whole presentation on, we do all of this work. September 1 rolls around, you get your letters ready, you're excited for that junior class. And you really are just getting a chance to meet the class that you just signed, right? They're freshmen now on campus, but you're already on to the next class. And I realized that why does it have to stop? Why do you have to stop building relationships once they get there? What happens in that? We're already on to the next thing, on to the next thing. So I gave a talk then on once you get them, how do you keep them? It's probably my favorite talk. And now that we fast forward to how we are now, and unfortunately, a lot of that probably wouldn't even apply, right? A lot of that wouldn't apply because now the rules are different. You can do everything right. You can have coffee. These are some of the things I talked about in the presentation. You can have coffee as part of your academic meeting, not in your office, or you can go to their favorite spot on campus, but there's so many more distractions now and so many more voices in their ear that you can do everything that you think you can do right and have a great relationship. And at the end of the day, somebody might just be slide into their DMs and have a whole different plan that you have no control over. But that one still is probably one of my favorite talks. And then to probably add to that, which is I'm a huge proponent of mental health. We put together a mental health panel with coaches and student athletes. And, that was maybe one of the Tampa ones. And what was crazy about that is just you think about where we are now, it's becoming less and less of a stigma. People talk about it a lot. Even now, having the opportunity to lead my own program, our players and staff get mental health days. You text me 30 minutes before practice, no questions asked, you don't have to show up. There's no punishment if you don't show up. There's no workout you have to do to get back in. If it's 2 days in a row, you need to get with the trainer and we need to get you with mental health specialists. But I'm a huge proponent of just mental health. And sometimes you're just not feeling it. Sometimes you wake up and there's nothing wrong. And there's no sense of trying to fake through practice and grind your way through a practice that we can just try again tomorrow. And, I talk very openly with my team about that, with my staff about that. I want people when we are together, if it's 2 hours, I want you to be present and be focused for 2 hours. And if you can't, that's okay. So those two things, probably mental health and just being able to, I'm really passionate about building those relationships with your current team, just so they still feel wanted and appreciated as well. In regards to WBCA, I'm a huge fan of WBCA. I try to stay as active and involved as I can, whether it's speaking, a roundtable or panel, or even the mentoring program. I think they try to provide a lot that as coaches, if we logged on and actually try to take advantage of, sometimes there's a lot of resources there, whether you're looking for drills, you're looking for advice, there's things that now that we're all in the Zoom world, but I really enjoy what the WBCA tries to provide for us as coaches and try to make it as one-stop shop in terms of an opportunity to learn and continuing to grow. Even if we can't be together physically a lot of times, I think the pivot that they were able to do in the pandemic has been phenomenal.
Mhm. So I don't want to mess this one up. So 43% of student athletes are Black, only 17% of head coaches are Black, 26% point gap. You had said one time, we all talk in our different circles about how there's not a lot of us and there's not a lot of opportunities, and we want to be successful for the ones behind us. It's it's one I take great pride in, and it's also one that I know I've worked for and prepared for. Awesome. How important is closing that gap to you, and why is it so important to you?
I think anytime you're in a position, whether as a person who identifies as Black, as a female, as you know, a gay person, I think all of those are important. I think, unfortunately, the numbers aren't very big. So the success or lack of success is a little bit more magnified, right? Because there's not a lot of numbers. There's not a lot that you're able to look at. So I think it's important. Again, of course, do we all want to win games? Absolutely. But I think it's important for me to be able to speak openly about all of those things, because I realize I recognize that I might be the only person of color somebody interacts with that day. I might be the only gay person somebody interacts with that day. I might be the only female that somebody interacts and this type of level. So it's important for me to show up and to be able to do all I can to be successful, not just in terms of wins and losses. I really feel like that will take care of itself, but whatever I can do to show up to be successful. So when I can stand there, shoulders back, chest out, I can also be in a situation to reach back and help somebody else. I think it's going to be hard to do that if you have so much going on and you feel like you don't have the resources to be successful yourself. Success can look differently for everybody. I think for me, it's been able to show up like I have been. I've been able to impact our student athletes. And I think the winning will take care of itself, but it's important for me to literally show up day in and day out. So the next person who comes behind me, whether they identify as a female, whether they identify as Black or identify as gay, they feel like, oh, there's a person I can look to, that how she's done it, or can do some of the things that I've done and make it their own. But I think it's important to be able to kind of be that role model, whether you want to or not. And it's something that I've always taken great pride in. I realized that when I moved over 6 inches and I was no longer an assistant, my Twitter followers went up. My responsibility is a little different now, and how much people really are watching and paying attention to you. So I want to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to be successful, in hopes that somebody feels inspired by it, to work harder and get their opportunity as well.
What are some non-negotiables you have that you feel have allowed to your program to thrive? Like, what is it that you're like, this is what we do? This is a non-negotiable for me as a coach. And what does a regular practice look like for you?
Well, we usually at almost every team huddle will say compete. If you watch us play, that's pretty much what is said 90% of the time: compete, compete, compete. Whether it's for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, we try to compete every possession. I think you're also going to find one that we're going to just run. We like to get out and run. We want to play a fast pace, been able to compete. And then I think the other thing that we're not quite there yet, but we're building to that, is being able to do the little things, right? Doing the little things. When you our leading scorer right now is a 5'9" post player, and I joke with her all the time that she isn't the ideal person that I will go out and recruit, honestly, now that we're recruiting, but I really appreciate the way that she's made the offense her own. We play a 5-out motion, and we're one that we're going to make you feel like you have to guard everybody on the floor. I think if you ask anybody that plays us, you feel like you can't leave anybody open, because she can shoot, or she's going to drive hard, she's going to get an and one. We don't necessarily try to run a system through one person. Obviously, we have people that are doing well, but competing at the end of the day, competing for 40 minutes, if it takes 45, 50, 60, as we saw in the Butler, we want to be able to compete every single possession. And then you compete, like, you don't have to compete how I compete, like whatever your best effort is, we're looking for that every single possession on the floor. And we talk about it. If you were at our practice, you'll just see a lot of shooting drills. We shoot a lot, whether it's partner shooting, team shooting. We'll do defensively. Now that's a work in progress. That's a whole nother Zoom we don't have time for. But we were working in that area. But offensively, we like to score the ball. But definitely likes to score the ball, threes and layups, and you'll see just a lot of up and down transition drills, trying to finish at the rim or shooting threes in transition.
Awesome. Tell me the best lesson learned via observation of another coach.
Ooh, best lesson learned by watching someone else. Oh, less is more sometimes. Less is more is, I think, watching some coaches. I'm one that, especially when it comes to women's basketball, I'm a huge women's basketball junkie. And now it's crazy being in the position of a head coach, because I see how some people get to act. how some people are in timeouts. I watch timeouts a lot more intently now. And sometimes less is more. Like you don't have to script every single thing. As I tell our players, practices for me, that's my time to shine. Games, it's all on you at that point. Like there's not much, obviously there's adjustments you can make and things like that, but I don't get to blow my whistle. I don't get to blow my whistle and stop that, say, hey, no, you have to go here, you have to cut there. That's for them. And so I try to do everything in practice to prepare them for that freedom on the court. But I think by watching other coaches, I would say less is more sometimes. Like you can let them play and not, you can teach them how to play instead of teach them plays.
Mhm. You started young as a coach. If, let's say it was a random coach stepping on the floor for the first time, you can give them one piece of advice.
Ooh,
Only one.
yes.
What's the best piece of advice you give them?
Listen. I think so many times us coaches, we think, oh, especially now, if a coach is stepping on the floor now, back maybe when I started 21 years ago, it was the coach, the players, the clear, like the coach is always right. But now we've got to listen. This generation has so much more access than we ever did. So they probably did see something better on Twitter than what you're trying to tell them right now, right? They might have seen something on TikTok that might be a slightly different idea than what you're trying to say. Listen, I think too many times we think, oh, I'm in this role of coach now, I have this position of power and they have to listen to me. Yes, but respect is both earned, right? It's earned both ways. It's not just automatic now. And it's not, I don't think this generation tries to be disrespectful. I think they just have so much more information than we ever have. So what feels like, and then people have come to our practice and they might say that, it seems like, oh, your team always has something to say. Well, I let them have something to say and I'll explain a drill. They might have a better way. And I'm like, okay, do it your way. As long as I get X, Y, Z. And I think the ability to listen, both as a young coach, not only to your athletes about maybe what ideas or opinions they may have, but then also to your coaches, like listen first, listen before you come off, especially if you're a young coach. You probably saw something on Twitter you're trying to take to your head coach. Just breathe, have a little patience, listen, think it through. And then not every situation requires your opinion either. Not every situation requires an opinion from you. You might have to just sit this one out and be okay with sitting something out. I think early in my career, I definitely would be one that took it a little personal, like, oh, they didn't take my opinion or they didn't do this. It's, okay, sit this one out. How much energy do you want to give it? That's what I tell my players often. You want to waste some good energy right now on a warm-up drill when we got something more intense coming up. And it's the same as coaching. Do you want to waste a good energy on something that you didn't maybe research that hard or don't really feel that strongly? If you feel strongly in it, absolutely go all in. But if you can let this one slide for something more, do that. So it's been a little work in progress. Not that I'm perfect at it, but the ability to listen first and then decide how much energy I want to give something has made wonders for me in my coaching career.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So when somebody sees the University of Denver play, we're not talking about wins, we're not talking about losses. What will they see? What are you looking for people to see when they see your team play?
A fun style. I want, when people watch us play, especially for the first time, I want them to feel like, man, that was a fun game. That was a fun game. Win or lose, I want them to feel like it was a fun game to watch. And, I feel like we're a fun team to watch because of the way we can shoot the ball, that we never feel like we're out of a game, right? We had a game this year where we made 19 threes. So we feel like we have the ability to be in every game because how we can shoot the ball. And that's usually my goal at the end of a game. I want people to feel like, man, I can't wait to watch them play again, or that was a fun game to watch, just because of the pace. We don't walk the ball up the court. We like to push the pace. We like to score in bunches and quick. And it is fun when one of our players gets hot. That game we made 19, we had one kid make 10 threes. And we play very unselfish. She got hot and it was fun to watch her teammates pass up open shots to make sure she got another shot and to just kind of keep feeding her the ball. So we want people to feel like, man, that was fun. I can't wait to watch them again.
Awesome, awesome. Anything I missed you want to share?
Oh, no, I'm pretty impressed with your questions. I was prepared for like 3 of them and I'm impressed with your research. So I really just appreciate the opportunity to talk about what I'm building here at the University of Denver, both on the court and off the court. I didn't talk much about our Life 4.0 program, but I spoke a little bit about mental health, but it was between mental health and social justice is where I created our Life 4.0 program. And it's just a way for me to bring life issues to our team It's an important part. It's usually about 45 minutes that we'll have guest speakers come in. And it started because I wanted to not have mental health be a stigma within our program. And I also wanted a space to talk about social justice issues as they came up. And it's one that, we take out practice time for it. It's that important to me that I will stop practice 45 minutes early, or we'll start late. Something like that to make sure that we get it in. Usually weekly, obviously now that we're in season and it's a little bit more difficult. But it's also given us a chance to talk about the value of their scholarship, financial planning. We do get a COA here. So the Life for program is one that I'm very proud about. Really the foundation of that though is a chance to make sure mental health isn't a stigma in our program, and that we always have a place to talk about social justice, whether it's people of color issues or gay right issues, female issues, whether it's religion, things like that. We just wanted to make sure that we had a place to talk about it safely and to learn from each other.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Thanks, Coach. I really do appreciate this. I got a lot out of this. I'm sure that other people will as well. And I just appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem, Coach.